The U.S. Democratic presidential frontrunner has called on the administration of Donald Trump to ease restrictions against Iran as the nation reels from the coronavirus pandemic. Joe Biden said the U.S. has a moral obligation to offer help to people in need regardless of where they live, while fighting a virus that respects no borders. The former vice president said that the United States should take steps to offer aid to nations hardest hit by this virus. Biden's statement comes just days after 34 members of the U.S. Congress signed a letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo calling for the easing of the sanctions. Jason Unruhe is a political commentator and he joins us out of Ontario. Mr. Unruhe, welcome. What's your take here on Mr. Biden's statements? Calls are growing louder within among U.S. lawmakers to ease or lift the sanctions on Iran.
Well, frankly, I think this is very empty virtue signaling by the Democratic Party. We should not forget that the Democratic Party has fully supported the sanctions that have been placed against Iran from the beginning. They were not in any serious opposition to blockading certain medical supplies before the COVID-19 outbreak began. The fact is the Democratic Party cares nothing for Iran, has never done so in the past. They were the ones behind the nuclear agreement, which was, frankly, an unjust agreement that Iran was essentially forced into taking. It has been very clear that the Democratic Party is no friend of Iran. If the U.S. empire, whether that be Republican or Democrat, had any soul, none of these sanctions would have been placed on the country to begin with. Even after the U.S. unilaterally left, they would have called on the United States, or called on their own government, to remove the existing sanctions as they were no longer a part of the agreement. So I don't see any real concern coming out of them. I mean, they have been some of the greatest hawks of regime change. Remember, Hillary Clinton was very much a war hawk towards Iran, seeking the same kind of regime change in order to try to force the country to come under the heel of U.S. imperialism. So this idea that now Joe Biden suddenly cares about the people of Iran is frankly completely hollow. They have never cared since the beginning. I see very clearly what he is trying to do here. He's trying to use this crisis to a political advantage, try to make himself look like the humanitarian in contrast to the tyrant Trump that is doing more things to hurt Iran. But were this situation reversed, we would be seeing exactly the same thing. The Republican candidate would be calling on the Democrat-led government in order to reduce sanctions in order to make it look like they're the peacemakers, that they are the people who care about those who are suffering. But frankly, it's all a gigantic act of political theater and nothing more than political opportunism on the part of Joe Biden.
And Mr. Unruhe, the Iran's president recently said that the U.S. has lost the historic opportunity to ease or to remove the sanctions against Iran as Iran and the rest of the world grapples with this coronavirus pandemic. Has the United States lost this opportunity to remove these unilateral sanctions, and is the damage already been done?
I certainly do think that the damage has already been done. The U.S. could have done something to repair its image to some degree by allowing many of the necessary medical equipment to enter Iran in order to deal with this ongoing COVID crisis. And instead, they have very specifically chosen to do the opposite. They have decided to make up all kinds of accusations of numbers being covered up, Iran being completely incompetent in dealing with it, while essentially not providing any evidence of this, just merely making the accusation, which is almost a pot calling the kettle black, given the massive widespread of the disease, the virus throughout the United States to a greater degree than any country, even Wuhan, the epicenter of the actual illness. So it's completely, even outright hypocritical for the United States to make these kinds of accusations. What we could have seen was the U.S. be magnanimous, even if they were not being altruistic and merely trying to help their own image in the international community, which is very tarnished at this time. They could have at least done that little bit to help and make them seem as if they're not so bad after all, kind of image that the United States likes to generally project. But Unfortunately, they chose not to. They specifically chose to make the situation work and hinder Iran's efforts, specifically Iran's effort to battle the COVID-19 virus.
Mr. Unruhe, thank you very much indeed for joining us on our bulletin. Jason Unruhe, the political commentator, joining us out of Ontario.